So here we see that we're able to capture the responses that the user generated. The one that was most challenging was perhaps the fill-in-the-blanks answer, right? Being able to create a dynamic map out of it. Once it's sent over to the server side, the server needs to be able to insert an answer. Let's take a look at the data model that we had chosen for representing the answers. Notice that what we had said was that we would need to be able to create a submission for a particular student, for a particular quiz, for a particular answer. So first of all, we don't have the data model for any of this, right? We would need to create a submission that has references to a student, references to a quiz, references to the answers. The students we know is going to come from whoever's logged in. Right? Whoever's logged in will use the ID of the current user, right? For the quiz, probably we'll just need the ID of the quiz that you were taking. So you'll need to pass that to us as part of the post or put or whatever, right? And the answer is going to be all the answers that you provided. That we'll need to send that over to the server as well to figure out. All right. So let's work on creating a schema to be able to capture some of this. Let's see. So these are several one-to-many relationships. You know, we've built several one-to-many relationships before. We've done this one over here, quiz to question. We also have done multiple choice to choices, right? We've done that. Now we know that Mongo provides quite a bit of options on how to implement this, right? In a relational database, we pretty much are limited on what we can do. Typically we would just do a foreign key from the child to the parent, and here as well. But here we have so many more options. So here. We know that we already are going to have a collection for student, right? So so now that totally limits our options. Okay. Here we're going to be forced to have the submission just have a foreign key to the student. Right? It's just going to have to reference whoever the student is. Here we also have a collection for the quiz. So there too we're going to be limited on what to do with the quiz, where we're going to have a reference probably to the quiz. Here for the answers, well here we don't have a collection for answers. Or here we have several. We need to consider what should we do. Well, we could have a collection of all these answers, and if we have a separate collection, we have two options. We could have the records for the answers have a foreign key back to the submission. Right, that's a classical way that you would implement it using a relational database. Actually, the only way that you could do this in a relational database. Or we could have the submission have an array of references back to the answer. Right, that's kind of what we did with quizzes and question. That's what we did with doing quiz and question. Yes. Or we could do what we did with multiple choices. Right, we could have the choices embedded inside of the multiple choice. Now, remember that that's the preferred way of implementation if you're using MongoDB. Right? Here, the submission to student and the submission to quiz, we don't have an option. We have to go with a foreign key. Okay? But here, let's see. Maybe we do have an option here. What can we do here? First of all, we have to ask ourselves, does it make sense to look at answers outside of the context of a submission? Right? Kind of like we asked earlier when it says, does it make sense to have questions outside of the context of a quiz? In this case, it made sense, right, to have a question outside of the quiz. I wanted to be able to have instances of questions all by themselves so that they can be reused across multiple quizzes. But over here, kind of doesn't make sense, right? Does it make sense to have answers to exist outside of submission? Would we ever want to access an answer outside of a submission? It makes no sense, right? I don't want to have a list of answers outside of a particular submission, right? So here we kind of see that we do have the option of going this way, right, where we can embed the schema instead of another schema. Make sense? Right. So we're going to go with that implementation. All right. All right. So let's take a look at implementing this. Let's go on and go ahead and start creating a schema for this. Let's go on the server side, and let's go on and create here under quizzes. Let's create a schema for the submission. So we'll create a file. This would be submission, and this will be schema.server.js. Right? And in here, this will be the schema for this. This will be const mongoose require mongoose. Then we'll create the schema. This will be, we'll probably just export it from here. So module.exports, and this will be mongoose dot schema. And let's see what we're going to have here. So let's follow along with this UML class diagram. The submission is going to have a reference to the student, right? So that's going to be student, and it's going to be a reference, right? We know how to do that, right? It's what? The type is going to be schema, mongoose schema types, and then object ID. There it is, and it's going to be referencing. It's going to be referencing the user model, right? We're storing users and faculty and students, all of them as part of user, right? So here we can say user model. Excellent. So we have a reference to that. Now we need a reference to the question, right? So this will be the question, and this will be the same type. So let me just copy this. Oops. Wait, did I copy? Copy. Paste. There we go. So it's the same type. They both have just object IDs. That's all they have are storing. But they're referencing some other model that is being maintained by Mongoose. So this will be the question model, right? The question model which is being implemented here. I'm sorry, not question model. The quiz. Sorry, the quiz. The quiz model. So this is the quiz. It references the quiz. Right? So the student, this particular student took this particular quiz, and this is what they answered. Okay? And finally, what else? What else do we need here? Then we need, let's see, we need an answer, right? And that's going to be an embedded schema. All right? So it's going to be embedded inside. It's not going to be an outside collection of answers, right? Right, so this is going to be answers. It's going to be an array, and it's going to be an embedded array. It's going to be an object, which is going to include several things. Right? It's going to be an object that includes what? Let's see. It has each one of the answers, right? And I think we called it fill blanks answers, right? And that's going to be perhaps either it could be a map. It could be a map, right? Let's say it's going to be a map of what? It's going to be a map of the variable name, which is going to be a string, and it's going to be the value that is submitted. It's also going to be a string. Okay. What else am I going to have there? We're going to have a multiple choice answer. So multiple choice answer. And that's going to be just a number. Which one did you select? Number 2, number 3, number 1, number 0. Which one did you select? So there's going to be a number. For true false, it'll be true false. This is what we're submitting, right? This is what we're submitting from the client, right? In the question, embedded in the question, this is what we're submitting. So the true false answer. This is going to be Boolean. It's whatever they submitted, whether they chose it to be true or false. What else? And then the essay answer is just going to be a plain old string, some long string, some paragraph that they've submitted. Okay. What else do we want to keep track here? Well, not only the answers that we need to track, we need also to track for what question is this the answer of. Right, because we need to be able to grade these answers. We need to go back to the original question and compare. Okay, they answered true. but the correct answer is false. It's wrong, right? We need to be able to get the original question, right? So we need a reference to the original question. That's why there's a one-to-one reference, right, between the answer and the question. See that? So we need the original question, and that's going to be a reference to the original question. Right? So this is going to be type is going to be mongoose, schema, types, and object ID. And it's going to be referencing the original question model. See that? That's a fairly complex schema. See that? That's pretty cool. Right? It's got a couple of references in there. It's got an embedded schema in there. The embedded schema has references to other quizzes. That's pretty cool. All right. Excellent. So we have that. We have that. So let's try and see if we can populate this, right? We can populate this. Typically, what we'll do is that we'll have the server passing the quiz answers, right? All of that from the client side. We could parse it on the client side, right? We could parse it out on the client side and create an object and just send the entire submission. Instead, I'm a little lazy. I'm just gonna pass the entire quiz object, right? And have the server do the parsing out of all these values, right? All right. So let's take a look at how we could do that. We have the schema. We have the schema. We'll probably also need the model so that we can actually create these instances of this, right? So let's create submission dot model dot server.js, and in the model we'll need mongoose. We'll need the schema. For the submission, and we'll need the model, right? So const model will be mongoose model, and this will be a submission model for the schema, right? And then we would like to be able to create instances of this. So we'll do a create submission. And so we'll just take the submission and just it'll insert it. So this will be mongoose dot create submission. And just to validate this, we could retrieve all the submissions. We'll say find all submissions. Find all submissions. So this will be something like mongoose dot find all, right? And finally, probably, me as a student, I'd like to be able to look at the submissions that I submitted, right, for the quizzes that I took, right? So I'd like to be able to say, if I'm logged in and I go into my profile page, perhaps I want to see all my grades. I want to see all the submissions for all the quizzes that I took. So I'll also probably need something like find all submissions for student or something, right? Student, and then we take our argument, something like the student ID, right? And we can certainly retrieve that. We could say mongoose.find. And now notice that the data model, indeed the schema actually has a reference. This is the ID. So student, the value of student is what? It's an ID, right? It's an object ID. So we could filter by that. We can say that I want to filter by where the student, right, is equal to the student ID. So that will come back with me only the submissions for that particular student. See that? So perhaps the faculty might want to look at all the submissions. Probably they'll want all these submissions will be across all quizzes, right? Probably across all courses. So probably we'll need to narrow this down, right? Probably our data model would need to also have a reference to the course, right? So because they like to filter by course, because this will be all the submissions across all courses, right? Across all faculty. So probably this will be a little, we'll need to filter that too, right? But if it's just one course, this might be something where a faculty might want to retrieve, find all submissions for the quiz, for a particular quiz. They might want to see, hey, for quiz number 3, I want to see all the submissions across all the students. I don't really care who the student is. I want to see all of them, right? So I can see all the grades. So this probably might want to be for quiz, and this is quiz ID. And indeed, we have the quiz ID there, right? So we can say quiz, so mongoose dot find, and retrieve only the ones where the quiz is equal to the quiz ID. Make sense? All right. All right, excellent. So we have that. We can now export. We can export this. So module.exports. We can make it equal to a map that includes all our functions here that are interacting with the database. Make sense? Right. All right. So let's implement a service, right, that can perhaps receive one of these submissions, parse out whatever it needs from the client, right, and then create a submission into the database, right. Before you do that, let's see yeah, we forgot to configure here. Where do we want to store it, right? So we want the collection. We want to store it in a collection called submission. All right.